Now, Vanessa, let's bring you on screen because, of course, you're fully aware that where war's concerned, money is not a problem. But I think you're going to give us a look at what's happening in the Red Sea, amongst other places.
Yes, so today the focus is going to be, as you said, on the Red Sea off the coast of Yemen and, of course, the Gulf of Aden to the south of Yemen. There is a confrontation looming, of course, led by the US, since Yemen has intervened to try to prevent the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. It has targeted Eilat in southern Israel, and it has been targeting ships both crossing the Red Sea off their coast and heading to Israel, and it has been extremely successful. Hence, we've had a recent tour by the Secretary of Defense, US Secretary of Defense, Lloyd J. Austin III. This was from yesterday, so it's in basically the last 48 hours. He's here at the US 55th Fleet HQ in Bahrain. And then previously to that, Brian, in the next slide, he was meeting in Israel with the Defense Minister Gantz in Israel. He emphasized US support for Israel's right to defend itself, again, from terrorism, while minimizing harm to civilians and increasing humanitarian aid to Gaza. Of course, that's complete hypocrisy because they're supplying the weapons that are massacring Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank, and no humanitarian aid is actually entering Gaza, thanks to Israel. He was honored to meet the Israeli PM, my fourth trip to Israel as Secretary of Defense, my second since the October 7th attacks, underscores an important message. The United States' commitment to Israel's security is unshakable. So very clear messages coming across here. And here you have again productive meeting with Yoav Gallant to discuss Israel's ongoing campaign to defeat Hamas, to include objectives, phasing and protecting civilians. Again, hypocrisy. Also that he's focusing on Iran-backed threats across the region and our shared commitment to countering this aggression. Of course, that includes Yemen, that is very much perceived as an Iranian proxy, although that is misleading. And previously, on December the 15th, he spoke to his counterpart in the UK, Grant Shapps, to discuss the ongoing threats to civilians and global shipping posed by Houthi and Ansarullah, which is a resistance movement, attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. These reckless and illegal attacks are an international problem that must be addressed. So it's okay for the US to support Israel's genocide against Palestinians, but it's not okay for Yemen to come to the support of those Palestinians that are being slaughtered in their droves. And finally, just this little clip of part of his press conference, where again he reiterates unconditional support for Israel. Just play the video, please.
As John F. Kennedy said in 1960, America's friendship with Israel is a national commitment. That was true then, and it's even truer now. The United States will remain Israel's closest friend in the world. And as I've said repeatedly, our support for Israel's security remains unshakable, and it always will.
Of course, what we're seeing here are huge similarities between Zelensky and Ukraine and US unconditional support to destabilize Russia and the US support for what is effectively their military outpost in the Middle East in order to destabilize, balkanize, and fracture the region. Here we have Austin trying to lobby the Saudi Minister of Defense to discuss Houthi threats to freedom of navigation in the Red Sea and our desire to work with like-minded partners to secure safe passage for global shipping. So what does that actually mean? Well, what Austin has done is to create an international task force to protect shipping from Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. The group will be called Operation Prosperity Guardian. I love how they always find these superlative nomenclature for their various operations, which always end in the slaughter of the peoples that they are targeting. and includes the UK, of course, primary partner, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain. Spain has actually withdrawn, citing that it will only join if the EU and NATO get involved. This article in Politico, the US weighs strike options to deter Houthis from more Red Sea attacks. And let's have a look at the shipping companies that have been affected in the next slide, please, Brian. So the Pentagon in recent days has moved the Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier strike group from the Persian Gulf into the Gulf of Aden off the coast of Yemen. And then moving on, Brian, we can look at the other naval presence there. So this comes as Austin and sorry, if you can just go back one, please, Brian. The Pentagon has bolstered its presence in the region, moving 3 additional destroyers into the Med Sea this week. Ships joined the Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group that has been operating in the Mediterranean since October the 7th, and a deployment that Austin extended again this week. So let's have a look at what this means. The US is pushing Red Sea into a war zone to protect the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Moving on to the next slide, we can see the various shipping companies that have been affected. French shipping and logistics giant CMA CGM announced on Monday that it would reroute some of its vessels through the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa due to increased Yemeni operations in the Red Sea. And on the next slide, we can see the other shipping companies that have been affected. That includes British Petroleum, Norwegian oil and gas firm Equinor, Belgian oil tanker firm Euronav, Taiwanese container shipping line Evergreen, Norway-based oil tanker group Frontline, German container shipping line Hapag Lloyd, South Korean container shipper HMM, Denmark's AP Moller Maersk, Mediterranean Shipping Company MSC, and Taiwan's Yangming Marine Transport. So an extraordinary effect on the shipping going to Israel, and in reality, we have here that not a single cargo ship has arrived in Israel for 2 weeks in Eilat. And we expect the same for the next 4 weeks, states a source from the Israeli maritime trade sector. And again, on the next slide, I just want to look again at the map showing what it actually means in terms of time to go instead of through the Red Sea around the Cape of Good Hope. And the head of Suez Canal has said that 55 cargo ships have been diverted around the Cape of Good Hope since the 19th of the 11th. And the next slide, the number of ships that have been targeted or affected by the Yemeni campaign, and people can freeze frame that later and have a look. This article in Press TV, Yemen says that they will turn the Red Sea into a graveyard after the US announces its maritime coalition. Yemen's defense minister, on the next slide, has denounced the formation of a US-led maritime task force in the Red Sea to protect the passage of merchant vessels bound for the Israeli-occupied territories, cautioning the Western alliance that any assault on Yemeni soil will have dire consequences. We are in possession of munitions and military gear that can sink your warships, submarines, and aircraft carriers, Major General Mohammed al-Atifi said on Monday. And the Yemeni armed forces will turn the Red Sea into a graveyard of the US-led coalition. Yemen is known historically as the graveyard of invaders. And a quick look at this map just shows how strategically Yemen is placed to prevent the shipping entering the Red Sea and heading up towards Eilat in southern occupied territories of Palestine and in the Gulf of Aden. So what has actually happened is that Israel has triggered the UAE to establish a land bridge between ports. This was reported in Israeli media earlier in December. And in reality, what does this mean? The next slide will just show the map. So it means that now there is supplies being taken by land from Bahrain and UAE to the port of Haifa in northern occupied territories or Israel. And so therefore, the Yemen campaign is very successful. It's successful from another perspective also, the sense that a French frigate recently had to fire an Aster-15 surface-to-air missile, which costs $1 million, against a Shahed-type drone, which cost $20,000. And as a French chief of defense staff, General Thierry Bouchard, said earlier this month in a conference in Paris, when you kill a Shahed with an Aster, it's really the Shahed that has killed the Aster.
That excellent report. What caught my attention was Austin's use of the phrase, his loyalty to Israel was unshakable, because that was what David Cameron said when he was Prime Minister all those years ago. And we've got exactly the same background from Grant Shapps. So is the loyalty to UK at the moment, or is the loyalty to Israel? I'm not sure, and we'll watch things with interest. But let's